we will study a theorem. Let n be a non-linear space and x0 be a non-zero vector in n. Then there is a functional f0 in n star. Recall, what is n star? N star is the set of all scalar valued functions. If n is real valued, then it will consist of all functions f from n to r which are linear and bounded. If n is complex non-linear space, then you can have C. So n star consists of all scalar valued functions on n which are linear and bounded. Okay. There is a functional f0 in n star such that f0 x0 is equal to norm of x0 and norm of f0 is equal to 1. So we will prove this theorem by using Hahn-Banach theorem, okay, which we have studied. Proof. M0, let M0 be a space spanned by vector x0 in n. For safer side, let me write alpha is scalar. Scalar means real or complex number. It is a subspace of n. We are defining a linear subspace M0 of n as a space spanned by vector x0. Basically, it consists of all scalar multiples of vector x0. Okay. Now we will define a function. F0, define a function f0 from m0 to r or maybe c, depending on whether n is real or complex non-linear space, as f0 of alpha x0 is equal to alpha times norm of x0. f0 of alpha x0 is equal to alpha times norm of x0. We will prove that f0 is linear. So at first we will prove that f0 is linear. So in order to prove the linearity, let us take two vectors. Say y1, let y1 is equal to alpha 1 x0, y2 is equal to alpha 2 x0, be in m0, where alpha 1 and alpha 2 are scalars, where alpha 1 and alpha 2 are scalars, where alpha 1 and alpha 2 are scalars. Let delta be a scalar, or let me take lambda. Let lambda be a scalar again. So in order to prove linearity of f0, we are going to prove that f0 of y1 plus y2 equals to f0 of y1 plus f0 of y2, and lambda of, or f0 of lambda y1, f0 of lambda y1 equals to lambda times f0 of y1. Okay, so this is what we are going to prove for this. Now okay, let me erase this. We'll prove it one by one. Let lambda be a scalar. So consider, I'll continue in this part here. Consider f0 of y1 plus y2. It is equal to f0 of alpha 1 x0 plus alpha 2 x0, which equals to f0 of alpha 1 plus alpha 2 x0, in bracket alpha 1 plus alpha 2 x0. Note that n is basically vector space, so we are using properties of vector space here. So this is equal to, by definition of f0, here alpha is alpha 1 plus alpha 2, so it is equal to alpha 1 plus alpha 2 norm of x0, which equals to alpha 1 norm of x0 plus alpha 2 norm of x0. The first term is nothing but f0 of y1, and second term is nothing but f0 of y2. Okay, so thus we proved that f0 of y1 plus y2 is equal to f0 of y1 plus y2 is equal to f0 of y1 plus f0 of y2. So this is first statement. Next we consider f0 of, say, lambda y1. This is equal to f0 of lambda times alpha 1 x0. y1 is alpha 1 x0, alpha 1 x0. So this is equal to f0 of lambda alpha 1 x0. Again, by definition of f0, here alpha in this case is lambda alpha 1. So lambda alpha 1 times norm of x0, which I could write as lambda in bracket alpha 1 norm of x0, which equals to lambda times f of y1. What is f of y1? It is alpha 1 times norm of x0. So thus what we proved, f0 of lambda y1 is equal to lambda times f0 of y1. These two properties are sufficient to prove that f0 is linear. So from first and second we conclude that f0 is linear. From first and second we conclude that f0 is linear. f0 is linear. Second property, we will prove that f0 is, we want to prove that f0 is a functional, so it must be linear and bounded, that is linear and continuous. So secondly we will prove that f0 is bounded. f0 is bounded. Okay. So to prove that f0 is bounded, consider norm of f0 of alpha x0. It is equal to, by definition, f0 of alpha x0 is equal to alpha times norm x0. So this is, I could write it as norm mod alpha norm of x0. Better, I could write this as, this is equal to norm of I could take mod alpha and write in that fashion. But what I want is, I want to take this as, that was correct, whatever I written earlier, mod alpha norm x0, and that I could write it as norm of alpha x0. So carefully observe what we are writing. This implies norm of f0y is equal to, or let us say less equal to, norm of y, where y is equal to alpha x0 which belongs to m0. What is definition of bounded functional? A function is bounded if there exists a constant, a function t is bounded if there is a constant k such that norm of tx is less equal to k times norm x. So in this case the constant is 1 itself. So such a constant exists, hence we can say that f0 is bounded. So this holds for all y. It was arbitrary element of m0. Y equals to alpha x0 is arbitrary element of m0. This holds for all, y belongs to m0. Hence this holds for all y belongs to m0. Hence f0 is bounded as required. Finally, we have to prove that norm of f0 is equal to 1. Finally, we have to prove that norm of f0 is equal to 1. Recall that f0 is a functional. Now it is a functional because we have proved that it is linear and bounded on m0. So what is norm of f0? It is equal to supremum of the set S, where what is S? S consists of norm of f0x, where norm of To avoid confusion, I may take y as well here. So let me use y. It doesn't matter whether we use x or y. It is just a matter of notation. So where S is equal to norm of S is equal to this set. It consists of norms of all vectors where norm of phi is less equal to 1 and phi belongs to M. Better I could rewrite it. For preciseness, let me put all conditions. Phi belongs to M0 and norm of phi is less equal to 1. So this is the definition of norm. Norm of F0 is supremum of this set. Okay. Phi belongs to M0 and norm y is less equal to 1. We want to prove that supremum of S is 1. So that can easily be proved. For y belongs to M0 with norm of phi less equal to 1, consider norm of F0y. It is equal to, by definition, it is equal to, recall the definition of F0 of phi. It is norm of F0 of alpha x0 which is equal to phi I am taking in the form alpha x0. So it is equal to norm of alpha norm of x0 which is equal to, as we have observed here also, this equals to norm of alpha x0 which equals to norm of phi, and it is less equal to 1 since norm of phi is less equal to 1. Okay. So thus what we proved, whenever norm of phi is less equal to 1, this implies that norm of f0y is less equal to 1. It means that 1 is upper bound of the set S. So this implies 1 is upper bound of S. 1 is upper bound of S. Now what is relation between least upper bound and upper bound? Obviously least upper bound is less than or equal to upper bound. Very basic fact we are using. Least upper bound is less equal to upper bound. Supremum is less equal to upper bound. Least upper bound is same as supremum. So this implies supremum of S is less equal to 1. This implies norm of, but supremum of S is nothing but norm of F0. So norm of F0 is less equal to 1. Say this is third statement. Now what is left? To prove the reverse way inequality. To prove the reverse way inequality. That is 1 is less equal to norm of F0, and then we can conclude that norm of F0 is equal to 1. So in order to obtain the reverse way inequality, let me take a vector. I could call this statement as 3 as well, combiningly 3. Say 3 is combination these two statements, or if you want I could better whatever I have written is correct, but probably it is better to proceed in this way. Note that making mathematics is experimental. Only if we try n incorrect ideas, then we can hit one correct idea. So mathematics in its presentation is perfect, but mathematics in its making is experimental. And in fact, this is what that makes mathematics interesting. The only way to learn mathematics is to do it, to solve problems, to prove theorems, and so on. So I would request you to involve yourself in the process of making mathematics and make learning mathematics fruitful. Anyway, let me continue with the proof. So supremum of S is less equal to 1. Now take, I'll call this time as y prime or y dash equals to 1 upon norm x0 which belongs to m0. Whether y prime belongs to m0? Yes, because it is scalar multiple of x0. It is alpha x0 where alpha equals to 1 upon norm x0. So it clearly belongs to m0. As norm of phi dash, you can easily observe that norm of phi dash is norm of x0 upon 1 upon norm of x0 equals to 1. We can say that if norm of f0 y dash belongs to S. What types of elements S consists of? It consists of norm of f0 y, where norm of y is less equal to 1 and y belongs to m0. So with these observations we can say that norm of f0 y dash belongs to S, because norm of y dash is equal to 1. It has to be less equal to 1. In this case it is equal to 1, so it clearly belongs to S. Also we can find the actual value of this norm of f0 y dash. Use the definition. It is equal to, first let me write what is y dash, norm x0. So this I could write as, by definition of f0, alpha times norm of x0, that is 1 upon norm of x0 times norm x0. So this simply comes as a number 1. This is equal to 1. So norm of f0 y dash equals to 1. Now is the time to have conclusion. Refer to third, fourth and fifth statement. The third statement says that supremum of S is less equal to 1. And we have actually found one element in S whose value is equal to 1. So if there is some element which is equal to upper bound of the set, then the supremum of that set must be equal to that element. You think over it, it is very easy to understand. I have made it very easy to you by splitting the things in number of steps. Supremum of S is less equal to 1 and there is actually a one element which is norm of f0 y dash having value 1. So we can conclude that from third, fourth and fifth, we can conclude that supremum of S is equal to 1. But what is supremum of S? It is nothing but norm of f0 equals to 1. Recall which properties we have proved for f0. we have defined a function f0 on m0 such that it is linear, bounded, and it has a norm 1. So f0 is a functional. What is functional? Linear and bounded scalar valued function. So R or C, whatever, depending on whether n is real or complex. So it is linear and bounded. And further we have proved that norm of f0 equals to 1. So far this is what we have proved. 3 properties we have proved. Now in the last step of the proof, we will apply Hahn-Banach theorem to f0. By Hahn-Banach theorem, f0 can be extended to a functional on whole space n on n, preserving its norm on n, preserving the norm of f0, So that extension we may call it as f1, and that will be the required function. Or let us extend f0 to itself and call the extension itself as f0. That will give us the required function.